Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Eurotech Eclipse event. I am pre-recording this event over the weekend so that we can play it multiple times, and also so we can be outside and watch the event as well during the. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Eurotech Eclipse event. I want to take about 20 to 25 minutes here and go through some things on why the Eurotech Trofeo, and in fact, what I'm going to talk about with the Trofeo really applies to most all of our other models as well. But specifically, this is about the Trofeo and how it eclipses the competition or helps you eclipse the competition through technology that just simply isn't available on a number of our competitors' machines. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. Today is the reason we chose today to talk about eclipsing the competition, of course, is because this is the day of the great American eclipse. So most of the, or much of the country is going to be experiencing a total eclipse, or at least be able to see part of a total eclipse, depending on where you are, at some point during the day. We here in Florida, I think, are going to see about an 80 or 85%, whatever that means, of the eclipse. But everybody's excited about it. Had a hard time finding glasses. In fact, I never did find any glasses. All of the stores are sold out this morning. So we are busy trying to find some photo negatives or something where we can actually watch the darn thing. But anyway, I hope you enjoy it. What we did do is, in case you're in a place where it's cloudy or in a place where you're not going to see much of it, there is a NASA, and there's other places, but we included here, if you look right here, a website that you can click into, and it gives you some live information on the eclipse. So during the day, if you're not able to see it, you can certainly check in on that. Appreciate you being here, and let's go ahead and dive into some of the information about how the Eurotech helps you eclipse the competition. And this really came about because of one of our customers, and we'll get into that here in a minute. But we had a good customer of ours who was doing a lot of parts and sort of started buying Eurotechs really without us doing a whole typical sales process. He had heard they were very fast, and he started buying them for some of the parts that he was doing. And so we went to him and asked him, why are you buying Eurotechs? I mean, we know why folks buy them, but most of the time we're doing, a lot of work to try to convince the customer to go that direction. His name was Tom Hassett. Tom's one of our gold customers, and he owns a company called T&L Automatics, a big screw machine house, or traditional and CNC, but a big company in Rochester, New York. And we started talking to him about, why did you start buying Eurotechs? Because again, we didn't go through our typical, fairly lengthy sales process with him. And he had just heard that they were faster, and he put together his own analysis, independent of us putting anything together. And this is his quote: "The Eurotech machines are absolutely phenomenal. A part on our other multi-axis CNC machines at a cycle time of 74 seconds. We can run it in 60 seconds on the Eurotech, giving us an 18% savings. Eurotech's so much faster than the competition, its speed difference alone completely pays for the machine." And that's sort of, we honed in on that. And he said, basically, look, the Eurotech's free. It's a free machine for me. because it is so much faster. The difference in savings based on both the speed, which is a given, and also the ease of use, which gives him more unattended machining, actually gives a savings of more than the machine payment. So let's look at the numbers here real quick. This is, and we went through a couple parts with him. This is one of the parts specifically where we got, sort of dug into it. Eurotech was, and I'm going to go ahead and highlight this as I go down through it, but if you start at the top, throughput. The Eurotech throughput was 20 parts an hour versus 16 parts an hour, right? So if you start looking at that and try, in his mind, he kind of equates that into labor cost per part, because now I've got a machine with the same amount of labor, I'm getting more parts out. So each hour the operator and has to be there, whether it's a part operator per machine or a full operator. Normally it's a part of an operator. The less he has to be there, the less cost is going to be of labor time is going to be embedded in that part, so to speak. So if he looked at this particular part, said labor costs were $3 per part. So the Eurotech is saving him, he's getting 4 extra parts, remember 20 versus 16. That's saving him 4 times 3 or $12 every hour he's running that thing. So in his shop, he's running 2 80-hour shifts a week. That's 80 times the $12 an hour. It's $960 a week, 4.3 weeks a month. So just in that, we've got a labor savings of $4,128 embedded in our parts. So meaning he's looking at a cost savings, $4,128 less in labor cost in those parts per month. So that doesn't quite pay for a Eurotech, right? But in the addition to that is he basically, and we've heard this from many customers, is because of the Eurotech's out of the box enhancements for running unattended. For example, we have a CNC gantry system. We have a lot of software and specific special codes that allow the customer to make it easier to run unattended. Because of that, he can get an extra 4.8 hours per week in unattended time, right? And then he's got a 70-hour run rate on that particular part. So that is generating another $1,450 per month. So if you take those two figures, right, if we take the 4,128, we take the 1,450, now we're looking at $5,600 a month, which in fact really does make the machine free. And that's what he's saying is, okay, that's in addition. That's not his actual labor cost. That is his savings by using the Eurotech each month, $5,600 basically every single month that he's running that Eurotech. And so the first 5 years, assuming you're using a 5-year financing window, right? He's saving that different, so there's a difference in the cost of the Eurotech normally versus competition because, frankly, we're a little bit more money. But that savings is 100% taken care of by the Eurotech's speed and ease of use. So essentially, he's saying, "Hey, look, I get the machine for free. My entire monthly payment is paid for by the savings that I'm getting off of the machine." So that's his analysis. Let's take a little bit closer look at the Trofeo real quickly. I'm going to have to get rid of the things that are on the screen. Just one moment. Okay, so a couple things. One, for high production, Trophia, why is it faster? Because people always say, look, I don't believe you. You know, machine's a machine, they're all good, or maybe they're not all good, but a lot of them are good, and it really doesn't make a difference. How can you be any faster? And the reality is in cutting times, sometimes we're faster, sometimes not. I mean, so generally the cutting time, the actual part cutting when the tool is in the cut is going to basically be the same on most of the machines, or very similar, because we all have, I would say, similar horsepowers. There may be, maybe we have a little more torque on our live tools because we use a gear ratio and a specific type of spindle motor that gives us higher torque. But essentially the cutting time is the cutting time. So where does that cycle time savings come from? And it's really in a couple areas, and I'll go through them real quickly. One is what we call our gap elimination software, and that's why I said, yeah, this particular webinar is focusing on the Trophio series, but really this gap elimination software is available in all of the Eurotech series for our elite models. And that is basically taking a tremendous amount of time at the factory with our software engineers to build this machine so that there are no forced dwells in the cycle. So if you just kind of look at a lot of our competition, even in going from, say, turning into putting the brake on and going into a C-axis type move or a Y-axis type move, there's usually dwells in there that you can't take out in your program. Another big one is typically the whole process of cut off and getting into the next part. Again, there's a lot of dwells with the chuck where they're doing a ton of checking. And this eats up a tremendous amount of cycle time, particularly if you're doing a lot of indexing, if you're doing parts where you're not, doing in a cut for, 70-80% of the cut of the time. And so, our cutoff sequence, parts catch back into the cut, typically we're doing that and keeping, while we're doing our parts catch, we've got two tools in the cut on the main already, so that we essentially get that parts catch for free. Much of our competition does not do that or can't do that. So that's probably the biggest thing is the gap elimination software. The second thing I mentioned a little bit earlier is we have a 2-axis parts gantry system. And that, when I say it's an axis, it is truly a programmable axis. It shows up on the screen. It can be programmed just like any of the other moving axes on the machines. And what that allows us to do is, again, to bring that thing in anytime we want, place it anywhere we want. We also can, at the end of a bar, catch we bring it in, we rotate it around 180 degrees, and we catch the remnant without having to dump the remnant out or do any special handling on the remnant that takes extra cycle time. So this is again a huge plus, and I think if any of our customers would say, hey, they have the most elegant and fastest parts evacuation or parts catching system in the industry. And again, we can send you a video on this. It is very highly productive, and it's built into the system. It's not an add-on. It's not like, okay, I've got an option to go with a hydraulic bucket that flips up from the bottom, or an axis. I mean, it is an integral into the machine, designed into the machine for increased speed, the best speed in the industry, because of it is designed from the base up with that gantry system. Third, we have this, what we call our EGS, or Eurotech gang tool system. Anybody who's gotten our catalog, it is sometimes a little bit overwhelming, frankly, because we have so many different tools. But the reason we do that isn't to be confusing. The reason we do that is because, based on families of parts and the types of parts you're running, a lot of times that EGS, it allows us to add tools, and we'll talk about that in a second. But specifically for high production, what it lets you do is eliminate turret indexes. And we're talking about parts of seconds, but every part of that second counts when you're doing a production-oriented job. So, for example, if you've got a dual-headed live tool or a quad turning tool, for example, instead of indexing, where you're going to have to come off the part a little bit, index around, come back into the part, maybe you're at 4 seconds. Now we're just doing a slight y-axis slide to go from one cutting tool to the other, and many times you're talking a part of a second in terms of tool to tool. And then lastly, our clear shift, which is, again, very unique in the industry, where we are shifting our subspindle off center from the main spindle to improve clearance. So, classic example is you're doing a long drilling operation on, say, the main, and most of our competition, you have to wait for that drilling operation to be complete in order to get the second turret in on the sub. Ours, you don't. You shift down, and now you've got two completely separate work areas where that the main spindle can work on the main and the sub spindle can work on the sub, and with absolutely no interferences with each other. So it's a much safer operation, a lot less prone to having a crash, because you don't have the turrets operating in the same plane at all. And then secondly, and more importantly for production, is it's faster. So those 4 things: the gap elimination, the gantry system, EGS, and clear shift. Big difference in cycle time. Normally we see at least, we tell people we can, depending on the part, but usually guarantee about 20% difference from most of our Japanese competition. Again, I'm going to go ahead and clear this, move on to the next slide. Okay, so for lower size lot runs, and our primary advantage there is in our Eurotech gang tooling system, and we have a quick change system, a couple different types. But the thing that's very unique to us is this EGS system. So we've got again, a couple things that make low lot runs very, very productive. One is the EGS, so we can put more tools on the turret than most of our competition. We have up to 96 tools per turret, depending on the configuration. So on a dual turret Trofeo machine, you're looking at 192, which is not typical, although we do have a few customers that have families of parts that lend themselves to that kind of number of tools. But very, very frequently we'll see 2 turrets, 80 tools. So rather than using, say, a tool change machine where each tool change may take 10 seconds tool to tool or chip to chip, we've got more tools available, and we're going chip to chip sometimes in parts of seconds because we're using our gang tool system. So again, more tools, and they're resident, and so you're not going through that trade-off of complexity of using, say, I hate to use the word, but like an Integrex style or a B-axis milling head type style machine, where we see those used so frequently for small parts that don't really need that milling capability. They just do it for, they're using a big tool change machine because they want to have a lot more tools resident. Here you got 80, 90, 100 tools resident, but you don't have the complexity of using the tool change style machine. So EGS is a big part for these low lot run types of parts. Secondly, we have a very nice integral quick change work holding system that we have worked with a German company to develop specifically for our machine, so that it eliminates any, it kind of reduces the amount of interference, but gives you maximum flexibility on the work holding. And you can go back and forth from collets to jaw chucks to mandrels, and it's a very, very small footprint so that you can still get in tight with a turret in order to, do parts without interference issues. Third, we've integrated a specific proprietary, what we call rec check system, where basically you can run through the entire program with very slowly with the hand wheel in order to make sure all of your clearances are fine. We also have specifically and ourselves brought in a quick change bar feed where you can, it says 5 minutes, but quite frankly, if you're good at it, you can change a bar size and go from, say, a 2.5 inch bar to 1 inch bar. If you're really humping it and quick, you can be, in just several minutes, where you're essentially going to the PLC of the bar feeder, putting 2 inch in instead of, say, 2.5 inch. It makes all the changes automatically, and you just pop off the back remnant collet, and it's a quick change collet, and put on the new one, and you're back up and running as far as the change. No change in spindle liners, regardless of how large your change is on the bar size. So this is very, very fast and helps to keep the machine running in those low lot run types of situations. And then finally, we have integrated manual guide eye with our quick change package. And if you haven't seen the new manual guide eye, Fanuc, we hear it all the time. I mean, they aren't well known for having good quote unquote conversational or productivity programming types of tools, but the new manual guide eye is very good, and they have a whole video series out on the internet even that you can take a look at. We have started using it internally, and it's excellent. The factory has been using it for a number of years. That's really where we got turned on to it, because we had sort of a similar feeling towards Fanuc's quote unquote conversational package from some of their past missteps. But this is a whole different thing. They have really made it productive. And if you're doing low lot runs, or you're doing things where you want to be able to quickly program parts, I highly recommend you take a look at the current Fanuc manual guide as a productivity tool. It's not perfect, for sure. Nothing really is perfect, but it is a very good productivity tool for those low lot run types of parts. So that's the Trofeo for low lot runs, and really that's the bulk of the presentation. The one thing I wanted to go over that isn't in here is, I spoke earlier about Tom and his view on how I get the machine for free. And since this is on eclipsing the competition, I'm going to bring it back around to that. Because we do go through and spend a tremendous amount of time usually with our customers on looking at the parts and the economics of, does it make sense to go with the Eurotech? Because again, yeah, it is a little more expensive. Sometimes it's a lot more expensive. But really, it's an investment. It's not it's not a hobby expense or not a pleasure expense. It's something where, hey, you just got to sit down and look at the ROI. So, and sometimes it doesn't make sense to go with the Eurotech, right? So we really do spend a lot of time with our customers on looking at return on investment. And we put together, in conjunction with several of our customers, a tool for looking at whether it makes sense to go with the Eurotech. And it's a lot of numbers, and it's sort of like, wow, I'm going to turn off because that's too many numbers. But it's pretty simple. I'm going to try to make it as simple as possible. In that there's only a few of these that you might even need to change, but you can use this for anything, even if you're comparing one process to another process, or hey, our current process to, let's use this tool, and here's the investment in the tool. Any time you need to make an additional investment and compare it to an existing process. So let's get into it here, and I'm going to kind of take it down to as few things as possible. But this was specifically done in a competitive situation recently, where we were looking at some hydraulic parts for a customer, and they were currently doing them on a Lyco machine. I don't know if most of you are familiar with a Lyco, but it's a sort of you can think of it almost as a CNC Brown & Sharp. It has multiple slides across around the main, has a pick-off spindle, and some back working capability. It's not truly like, say, a dual turret machine, but it's designed to put, I would say, simpler parts where you have to do them real fast, where you can put multiple tools in the cut simultaneously. So in this particular case, we took a look at the current operation was on a Lyco. One of the nice things they liked about the Lyco was it was inexpensive. So we're looking at $252,000, right? Versus, say, the Trofeo they were considering investing in was $428,000. That's a huge machine payment difference, right? So this is a machine payment that automatically gets calculated as soon as you enter in these investment amounts. So, let's just take a quick look and just show you. If I enter in, say, $500,000 here, right, you're going to see that machine payment automatically changes. And let's say I put $300,000 in here, right, you're going to see that payment automatically changes. So it looks intimidating because there's a lot of numbers, but there's not a lot of things you have to enter in. Let me just go back and undo. I'm just going to leave it in there for right now. Hold on just one moment. 423 and 252. Go back to that. Okay, so if you look at this now, this machine payment gets automatically calculated. So the things you're entering in are the investment amount. This is an automatically calculated field, this machine payment. How many shifts you're running. If you want to just leave it at 3, leave it at 3. How many days per week you're running. If you're running 6, leave it at 6. How many weeks in the year you're running. If you're running 52, leave it at 52. So these may or may not change. This number of hours is automatically calculated then based on the entries here. So for example, if I change that to a 2, you're going to see the hours go down, right? So change it back to a 3. And then let's look at the cycle time difference. So here you are going to enter in the cycle time difference. In this particular case, they were running the part in a minute and a half, 90 seconds, and our estimate was 75 seconds, which in fact we guaranteed, right? They were running at $100 run rate on their machine on the Lyco. So that calculates this difference or the run rate, excuse me, for the Trofeo based on the cycle time difference. So based on that 15-second difference, they were going to go from $100 an hour on the Lyco to $120 an hour on the Trofeo, right? And then these are the overhead, these are the cost elements. And again, you don't have to change these. It may depend on your own. Well, it does depend on your own business, but you can leave them the same if you don't know them, or put in your best estimate. But in this particular case, the overhead for the machine shop was $20 an hour. And these were estimates. Our general and administrative overhead was $15 an hour, and our direct labor hour was, and this taxes, benefits, everything, is $40 an hour. They wanted to run 2 machines per person, so 2 machines per man, right? An 85% efficiency. This utilization, again, you don't have to change it if you want. Sometimes you get more than 100% of your hours. For example, if you can run some unattended where you don't have anybody there, you may exceed your normal machine man ratio. You can just leave all that at 100. That's why it looks more complex than it really is. A lot of times, the only things you're changing on this are going to be your investment, and then your number of shifts, and then the cycle time, and then plugging in a net revenue per hour. Seems complex, but actually, if you start looking at it, it's pretty darn simple. And what that does then, the rest of the sheet is completely calculated based on the inputs that are already there. And it gives you a breakdown. So let's take a look. So now, this seems monumental, right? I can get this machine for the Lyco. I'm working on a $252,000 investment. Trofeo, I'm looking at $423,000. Holy mackerel, right? That's $175,000 essentially difference. If you look at that, you think, geez, I'm probably inclined to do it on the Lyco. However, let's take a look at the numbers. What happens, right? If you look now down below, this gives you your financial difference based on that. I'm just going to get rid of this real quick. If you look at this down below here now, we've got number of parts per hour, and this uses that efficiency factor of 85%, but number of parts per hour, revenue per hour then, and then our revenue annually. So yeah, it's going to cost a lot difference because our machine payments show up here, right? Based on this monthly payment, our annual payment's going to be $86,000 for the Trofeo, $51,000 for the Lyco. But our labor overhead stays essentially the same, and we're now getting a ton more revenue off of that machine. So if you look, the cash difference, the actual cash difference at the end of the year is $92,000. So rather, our cash flow using the Lyco was $172. Cash flow using the Trofeos, $265. The difference is $92,000. That takes into account that machine payment difference. So that is after the machine payment difference. You're still making $92,000 more per year. Over a 5-year period, $461,000, which, let's go back to Tom's original comment, I get the machine for free, right? Our machine payment, $423,000. Our savings over the 5 years, $461,000. Okay, you can argue there's a time value of money, but the other side of that, the flip side of the time value is, hey, after 5 years, assuming you're doing a 5-year lease, after 5 years, I still get a revenue difference. And I plug in less revenue for the next 5 years because I assume the machine's going to be, say, less competitive. Your hourly rate might not be the same billing rate you have in the first 5 years because you're working with the latest technology. But anyway, if you look, first 5 years I had $763,000. Second 5 years I put $611,000. That's to be conservative, frankly. But if I did it on both sides, but now you have no machine payment difference because the machine's totally paid for. Still have a labor and overhead, But now your difference in profit from the machine isn't 53% as it was the first 5 years. It's 105%. And I think, I know with big companies, a 10-year investment window, hey, I'm not, we don't even look that far. But, we're not all big companies. And quite frankly, the machines are typically in our shops a heck of a lot longer than 5 years. And, it's probably time for this country and, to take a longer investment view than we have in the past. But anyway, so the first 5 years, it's still a good investment. But look at the second 5 years. It's gigantic. So over that 10-year window, and I would say most of our machines from 10 years, almost all of them are still out there running. That 10-year window, it gets gigantic. The investment difference is almost irrelevant because now you've gotten almost $1 million more off of the Eurotech, 72% more profit, 72% more profit over that 10-year window. So in the end, the speed that is just about everything. It trumps that investment difference dramatically. Because again, when you have the 5-year window, we're making more money. You have that second 5-year window, the speed is everything because it goes directly to the bottom line. And if all that doesn't make any sense to you, I go back to this box up here that I've just highlighted, right on the right here. And I'll circle it and highlight it. This box right here. It's pretty simple. This is, again, just the first 5 years. Yes, the investment's more. I'm going from $252,000 to $423,000. But forget all this other stuff, right? If that just seems too complicated, just forget all that other stuff. And if you look, the cost per hour based on this investment difference is $4.68. That's my additional cost per hour for this huge difference in investment. Because I'm running a number of hours, my cost per hour difference is $4.68. It doesn't take much speed difference to make up $4.68. Doesn't take, and I'm going to say it again because it's super important, not just for Eurotech, but for really, any piece of investment we're looking at. It doesn't take much difference in speed to make up for a difference in cost when we're running multiple shift operations, which, I would say a lot of our customers are, most of our customers are. In this particular case, the income per hour, $17 more per hour that we're making based on an investment per hour of $4.68. So if you don't want to finagle and go through all this stuff, you still have to put in some of the input. But if that just seems confusing, all these things below with the profit difference and so forth, just look at this per hour difference. Okay, it's pretty simple. Cost difference $4.68 based on that investment, and an income difference of 17. So that's all I had to go over. Again, I appreciate you attending this webinar. Hope it was valuable. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me. My email address is walz.jeff, walz.jeff@gmail.com, or at jeffw@eurotechelite.com. Either one will get to me the same way. Please send me an email question. For everybody who's on the webinar, we're going to send out both the presentation and the tool, and we will make this entire presentation available for watching it again. And again, thank you very much for attending. I appreciate it and look forward to talking to you again in the future.